Ever wonder what people ate to survive, like, really tough times throughout history?
Oh, yeah, like famines and wars and stuff.
Exactly. Today we're diving into the Lost Superfoods. It's this
Oh,
guide to foods that help people thrive in those situations.
interesting.
Yeah, from famines to wars, different periods,
Wow.
different cultures, and we'll learn what makes them special and,
Okay.
how this knowledge could be, like, relevant for us today.
I like it.
So to get your own copy of the book, by the way,
Oh, cool.
we've included a link in the description. You'll
Great.
find a lot more there than we can cover in this deep dive.
I bet.
So,
So
uh,
it's fascinating how we often overlook the ingenuity of our ancestors.
Right.
They didn't have supermarkets
Yeah.
or fancy gadgets, but
Yeah.
they found ways to not just survive,
Yeah.
but actually thrive on what
Right.
they had.
That's so cool. And we're exploring this through the lens of The Lost Superfoods
Okay.
by Claude Davis, who's kind of like a modern-day food historian. I think what's really compelling is that food security is more relevant now than ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with climate change,
Yeah.
economic uncertainties,
Mhm.
even just like everyday disruptions.
Right.
Knowing about resilient foods and how to preserve them could be so valuable.
For sure. Okay, so let's dive into some specific examples.
Okay.
First up, we've got something called the U.S. Doomsday Ration.
Doesn't exactly sound appetizing, does it?
Well, it wasn't meant to be a gourmet meal.
Right.
This ration was developed during the Cold War,
Okay.
a time when the threat of nuclear war was very real,
Scary.
and people were understandably anxious about societal collapse.
Oh, wow.
It was designed to be a cost-effective way to feed the entire U.S. population in a worst-case scenario.
And get this, it costs just 37 cents per day to feed an adult.
Wow.
Talk about budget-friendly prepping.
That's amazing. It really speaks to their ingenuity, finding ways to maximize nutrition on a tight budget and make sure it could last.
Now let's travel back to World War II. The city of Leningrad was under siege for almost 900 days.
No, gosh.
Food was incredibly scarce.
Yeah.
People were starving,
Ah.
but there was this one dish,
Uh-huh.
this Leningrad siege superfood that helped some people survive.
What was it?
It was made with what was available, including something you wouldn't expect.
I'm intrigued.
They used cow's feet.
Cow's feet.
Yeah, it might sound unappetizing to us,
Yeah, a little.
but they were able to extract nutrients and make a broth that could be preserved for months, even years, in the right conditions.
Wow.
It's a powerful example of how, even in the direst circumstances, people find ways to adapt and use every available resource.
That's incredible what people can do when they have to, isn't it?
It really is. Now on to another time of widespread hardship, the Great Depression.
Oh, okay.
I'm curious, what did people eat to get by then?
Well,
I'm guessing fancy ingredients weren't an option,
you're right. It was all about practicality and stretching resources as far as they could go.
right?
A very common meal was a simple but nourishing dish of beans and cornbread.
Beans and cornbread. That doesn't sound very exciting,
It was more than just filling.
but I guess it got the job done.
It was a surprisingly balanced meal. The beans provided protein and fiber,
Okay.
while the cornbread offered carbohydrates for energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you combine legumes and greens,
Yeah.
you actually get a complete protein, which is essential for maintaining health. It's a principle that's still relevant today, especially for those trying to eat healthy on a budget.
That makes sense.
Oh.
Okay, now for a story that really surprised me.
Oh.
During the Civil War, there was this food that ended up saving countless lives. And it's something that most of us would probably throw away today.
Really?
Can you believe that?
I know what you're talking about, and it really highlights the resourcefulness of people in times of scarcity.
Yeah,
They had to think outside the box and see potential in things that others overlooked.
that's amazing.
And it's a great lesson for us. We can learn to be more resourceful and waste less, too.
So we've seen how people survive these incredibly tough times. But how did they keep food from spoiling without refrigeration?
Yeah.
I mean, I could barely keep leftovers good for a few days.
Well, they had techniques that have been used for centuries, passed down through generations. Take, for example, the Dutch method of preserving cheese at room temperature. They've been doing this since the 14th century.
Wait, what? Room temperature.
Yeah.
I can't imagine leaving cheese out on my counter for more than an hour without it going bad. What's their secret?
They mastered the science behind traditional food preservation methods. It's all about controlling factors like moisture, salt, and bacteria to prevent spoilage. These techniques are actually making a comeback today,
Oh, wow.
as people are interested in reducing food waste and becoming more self-sufficient.
It's like we're rediscovering the wisdom of our ancestors.
Exactly.
And speaking of clever solutions, during the blackouts of World War II, The British came up with an ingenious way to keep their eggs from spoiling. They coated the eggs in a mixture of sodium silicate, also known as water glass.
Oh,
This created a barrier that prevented air from getting in and spoiling the eggs.
yeah.
Imagine that fresh eggs even during blackouts.
That's impressive. It shows how adaptable people can be even in unexpected circumstances. And it reminds us that practical knowledge like this never really goes out of style.
Okay, let's go global for a minute.
Okay.
Genghis Khan and his Mongol hordes conquered vast territories, right?
Right.
What kind of superfood fueled those armies on their long campaigns?
Well,
I'm guessing it wasn't takeout?
you're right about that. They relied heavily on kumis. It's a fermented mare's milk. It was more than just a drink. It was a nutritional powerhouse,
Yeah.
providing protein, essential fatty acids, and vitamins. But perhaps even more importantly, it was a great source of probiotics, which are beneficial bacteria that help keep your gut healthy.
Okay.
And having a healthy gut is especially crucial in challenging conditions.
That's fascinating. I never knew fermented mare's milk could be so important. And speaking of seafaring warriors, the Vikings were known for their long voyages. How did they manage to keep their food from spoiling on those journeys?
They were masters of preserving fish, which was a staple of their diet.
Okay.
They had a technique called rackfisk, which involved fermenting fish for months.
Fermenting fish, that sounds intense.
It is.
It actually tastes good.
Well, it's an acquired taste, that's for sure.
I bet.
But it was incredibly effective at preserving fish, allowing them to have a source of protein even on long voyages. And, there's a deep connection between these traditional food practices and sustainability.
Oh, really?
Ancient cultures were often way ahead of us in terms of respecting resources and minimizing waste. We can learn a lot from them.
It's amazing how food history reveals so much about human resilience and adaptability, isn't it?
It really does. And it's not just about the past.
Okay.
These lost superfoods and preservation techniques offer valuable lessons for us today, especially as we face new challenges like climate change and economic uncertainty.
Absolutely. We'll dive more into those modern applications after a quick break. Be right back.
We've been on quite a journey through history, haven't we? Uncovering these lost superfoods and learning how people relied on them in times of need.
It's really made me think differently about what it means to be prepared. I mean, who knew cow's feet and fermented fish could be so important? But now I'm curious.
Yeah.
How can we actually apply this knowledge to our modern lives? Because let's face it, things can get pretty unpredictable these days.
Exactly. Climate change is a growing concern, and it has the potential to disrupt our food systems in ways we might not even be able to imagine.
Right.
And then there's economic instability, which can make access to affordable and nutritious food a real challenge.
Mhm.
That's why having knowledge of these shelf-stable, nutrient-packed foods could be a game changer.
Okay, so let's get practical. What are some steps we can take to build a more resilient pantry? Like, what are the must-haves?
Well, think about foods that can last a long time without refrigeration and provide those essential nutrients we need to thrive.
Okay.
We talked about preserved meats, like the coated meat of the Ottoman Empire, which involves encasing cooked meat in fat and spices to seal it and prevent spoilage. And of course, there are dried or fermented foods like the Mongol superfood kumis.
Right, those make sense.
Yeah.
What about grains and legumes? Those seem like they'd store well.
Absolutely. Grains are a fantastic staple.
Uh.
In the Lost Superfoods, Davis talks about a long-lasting bread from the 1800s called hardtack. It was developed by the Cree tribe of Canada and could last for years. And beans, oh, don't underestimate the power of beans. They're packed with protein and fiber, and they can be stored for a really long time.
Okay, so we've got our long-lasting staples. Any tips for actually preparing them? Because I'll be honest, I'm not exactly a master chef.
Don't worry, that's where the beauty of these lost superfoods comes in. Many of them rely on simple cooking methods that anyone can master. Davis emphasizes straightforward recipes in his book. He even includes instructions for things like making fruit leather, which is a great way to preserve fruits and have a healthy snack, and a delicious dehydrated marinara sauce that can add flavor to any dish.
Dehydrated marinara.
Yeah.
Now that's something I have to try. This is making me think about those emergency food kits you can buy. Are those a good option?
They can be, but they can also be expensive, and honestly, they don't always offer a lot of variety. What's really empowering is that Davis actually provides guidance for creating your own DIY survival kit. It's far more affordable, and you can tailor it to your specific needs and preferences. He even has a recipe for a 2,400-calorie survival bar designed to provide a full day's worth of energy in one compact form.
Wow, that's impressive. It seems like this knowledge isn't just about surviving some major disaster. It's about being prepared for everyday life, too.
You hit the nail on the head. Imagine a power outage, a sudden job loss, or even just wanting to be more mindful about reducing food waste. Having a pantry stocked with these resilient foods gives you a sense of security and independence. It's about feeling empowered and knowing you can weather whatever storms come your way.
Well said. So we've covered a lot of ground,
hmm
historical examples, practical applications, DIY solutions. What do you think is the most important takeaway for our listeners?
I think it's about shifting our mindset. Resilience isn't just about stockpiling food, it's about cultivating a sense of preparedness and resourcefulness. It's about learning from the past, adapting to the present, and ensuring a more secure future.
That's a powerful thought. And remember, this is just a glimpse into the world of the lost superfoods. To explore these fascinating survival strategies further and get your own copy of the book, check out the link in the description. Now let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned and see what questions our listeners have. We'll be right back to wrap things up. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been exploring these incredible lost superfoods and how they've helped people survive some of history's toughest challenges. It's really inspiring to see how resourceful and resilient people can be.
Absolutely. And as we've discussed, these ancient techniques and forgotten foods aren't just relics of the past.
Right.
They offer practical solutions for building a more resilient and sustainable future, even today.
Yeah, what really struck me is how these foods go beyond just survival.
Yeah.
They represent cultural traditions, ingenuity, and a deep connection to the land and resources. It's fascinating how food can tell such a powerful story.
It's a story that's still being written today. We're facing new challenges, but we also have access to more knowledge and resources than ever before. By combining ancient wisdom with modern innovation, I think we can create a truly resilient food system for generations to come.
It makes you wonder what people will be eating 100 years from now
Yeah, for sure.
and how they'll be getting by.
Exactly.
I'm really curious to hear what stood out to our listeners. What surprised you? What resonated with you? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.
And to keep you thinking,
Yeah.
here's a question to ponder. If you had to choose just one lost superfood to add to your pantry,
Okay.
what would it be and why? Imagine you're building your own personal resilience kit.
Okay.
What would be your go-to food for a challenging situation?
That's a great question.
Mm.
I think I'd have to go with hardtack. It's simple, long-lasting,
Yeah.
and it seems like it could be pretty versatile. Plus, it's got that historical connection,
Right?
which I find really intriguing. What about you?
For me, it's a tie between kumis and pemmican. Kumis, the fermented mare's milk, is a probiotic powerhouse. And gut health is so crucial for overall well-being, especially in tough times.
Right.
But pemmican, a mixture of dried meat fat and berries, is like a portable energy bar from the past.
Wow.
It's packed with nutrients and can last for years if prepared properly. It's hard to choose just one.
It sounds like we both need to do some experimenting in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm inspired to try some of these recipes and see how I can incorporate these lost superfoods into my own life.
I'm right there with you. And I encourage everyone listening to do the same. Explore these foods, learn the techniques, and discover the power of resilience that lies within them.
That's great advice. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the lost superfoods. We hope you've learned something new and are feeling inspired to create a more resilient and delicious future for yourselves.